The world does not test your strength by asking how much you can lift. It tests your spirit by asking how much disrespect you are willing to tolerate before you finally choose yourself. Many people spend years believing that endless kindness is the highest form of virtue. They give their time without limits, forgive without change, and continue showing loyalty to those who have repeatedly shown none in return. At first, this feels noble. It feels like proof of good character. But slowly, almost without noticing, they begin to lose something far more valuable than time. They lose confidence. They begin to question their worth because the more they sacrifice, the less appreciated they seem to become. Instead of receiving gratitude, they become expected to give even more. Instead of earning respect, they become predictable. What once felt like compassion quietly turns into emotional exhaustion. Ideas commonly associated with Machiavelli challenge this comforting illusion. They suggest that good intentions alone are never enough to protect a person in a world where motives are often hidden beneath polite words and friendly smiles. Survival belongs not only to those with kind hearts, but also to those with clear judgment. The harsh reality is that some people are drawn toward generosity not because they admire it, but because they know it can be exploited. They recognize someone who struggles to say no, someone who apologizes for setting boundaries, or someone who believes keeping everyone happy is a personal responsibility. Those qualities may appear admirable, but without wisdom, they become invitations for manipulation. The first step toward becoming mentally stronger is recognizing that not everyone deserves unlimited access to your energy. Your attention, your trust, and your loyalty are valuable resources, not obligations you owe to everyone who enters your life. When they are given without discernment, they slowly disappear, leaving you with little strength for your own goals, your own peace, and your own growth. This is why truly resilient people learn to observe before they invest. They stop assuming that every smile represents sincerity and that every promise deserves belief. Instead, they allow actions, consistency, and respect to reveal a person's character over time. This change does not happen overnight. It begins with small decisions. You stop feeling guilty for protecting your schedule. You stop explaining every choice you make. You stop chasing people who repeatedly walk away and stop trying to convince those determined to misunderstand you. Instead of measuring your value by how much you can give, you begin measuring it by how well you protect your peace. That shift changes everything because your confidence is no longer dependent on someone else's approval. Many people mistake this transformation for becoming cold, but they misunderstand its purpose. Ruthlessness, in this sense, is not about harming others or abandoning compassion. It is about refusing to abandon yourself. It is the discipline of recognizing when kindness has become self-neglect and having the courage to change course. When your boundaries become stronger than your fear of disappointing people, you begin living differently. You no longer react to every criticism or seek validation from every opinion. You become calmer because your decisions come from clarity instead of guilt. This is where real strength begins. The world may continue to test your patience, your generosity, and your resolve, but it becomes far more difficult to break someone who knows their worth, protects their energy, and understands that true kindness is never measured by how much of yourself you are willing to lose for people who never intended to value you in the first place. Pain has a way of revealing truths that comfort never can. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid suffering, believing that a peaceful existence is the ultimate goal. Yet the moments that shape a person's character are rarely the comfortable ones. Betrayal, rejection, failure, and disappointment strip away illusions that success often hides. They expose weaknesses, challenge beliefs, and force difficult questions that would otherwise remain unanswered. While many people allow these experiences to define them as victims, others discover something entirely different. They realize that every painful experience carries a lesson capable of transforming weakness into strength. The difference between those who remain broken and those who become unshakable is not the amount of pain they experience, but the way they choose to respond once it arrives. Ideas commonly associated with Machiavelli suggest that adversity is not simply an obstacle, but an opportunity to sharpen judgment. A person who has never faced disappointment often trusts too easily, reacts too quickly, and assumes the world operates according to fairness alone. Experience teaches otherwise. Every broken promise reminds you to value actions over words. Every betrayal teaches the importance of observation before trust. Every failure reveals habits that success allowed you to ignore. Pain becomes a teacher that demands attention, not sympathy. Those willing to learn from it gradually develop a level of awareness that comfort alone could never provide. The greatest mistake people make is believing that suffering should immediately disappear. They rush to escape uncomfortable emotions through distraction, denial, or endless blame. Yet avoiding pain also means avoiding its lessons. Mentally disciplined individuals take a different path. They pause instead of running. They examine the situation honestly, asking themselves what decisions, assumptions, or blind spots contributed to the outcome. This process is rarely pleasant, but it produces something far more valuable than temporary relief. It produces wisdom. Wisdom allows future decisions to be guided by experience instead of impulse, making the same mistake far less likely to happen again. As this perspective develops, pain begins to lose its ability to intimidate. Challenges no longer feel like proof that life is unfair. Instead, they become opportunities to strengthen patience, emotional control, and resilience. A person who has survived disappointment without losing purpose becomes increasingly difficult to manipulate because fear no longer dominates their decisions. They understand that temporary discomfort is often the price of long-term growth. Rather than avoiding difficult conversations, necessary endings, or uncomfortable choices, they face them with calm determination, knowing that lasting strength is built through endurance rather than convenience. This transformation also changes the way success is viewed. Instead of chasing external validation, disciplined people begin investing in qualities that cannot easily be taken away. They value self-control over popularity, wisdom over recognition, and consistency over temporary victories. Their confidence no longer depends on perfect circumstances because it has been tested by adversity. They know they can recover from setbacks because they have already done it before. Every obstacle becomes evidence that they are capable of adapting rather than reasons to surrender. Eventually, the person who once feared pain becomes someone who respects it. They understand that suffering is not an enemy to be hated, but a force that can reveal hidden strength when approached with the right mindset. They stop asking why difficult things happen and begin asking what each experience can teach them. That single shift changes everything. Instead of carrying wounds as reminders of defeat, they carry lessons as reminders of growth. The world may continue to present hardship, but each challenge now becomes another opportunity to become wiser, stronger, and more disciplined than the person they were before. This is the moment pain stops being a burden and becomes a source of quiet power, preparing you for the next transformation. The courage to stop seeking approval and embrace the freedom that comes from no longer needing to be understood. One of the greatest traps in life is the belief that everyone must understand you before you can move forward. Many people spend years explaining their choices, defending their intentions, and trying to convince others that they are good, honest, or worthy of respect. They believe that if they simply find the right words, every misunderstanding will disappear and every critic will finally change their opinion. But reality rarely works that way. Most people do not judge you by your intentions. They judge you through their own experiences, expectations, and personal biases. No matter how carefully you explain yourself, there will always be those who misunderstand, misinterpret, or deliberately ignore the truth because it serves their own interests. The more desperately you seek their approval, the more control you quietly hand over to them. Ideas commonly associated with Machiavelli suggest that true influence comes from self-command rather than endless self-justification. A person who constantly explains every decision often reveals uncertainty, while someone who acts with quiet confidence allows their choices to speak for themselves. This does not mean becoming secretive or dishonest. It means understanding that your energy is too valuable to waste on people who have already decided how they want to see you. There is freedom in accepting that not every opinion can be changed, and not every accusation deserves a response. The strongest individuals recognize that silence is often more powerful than argument because silence protects both your peace and your focus. This lesson becomes even more important when dealing with manipulation. People who wish to control you often encourage long emotional conversations, endless debates, and repeated explanations because every reaction reveals more about your fears, your insecurities, and your priorities. The more information they collect, the easier it becomes to predict your behavior. Mentally disciplined people avoid this trap. They listen carefully, speak with intention, and reveal only what is necessary. Their restraint is not coldness but awareness. They understand that privacy protects clarity, while oversharing often creates unnecessary vulnerability. At the same time, emotional independence requires learning the art of detachment. Detachment is frequently misunderstood as a lack of care, but its true meaning is very different. It is the ability to value your peace more than your need to win every argument or preserve every relationship. It is recognizing that some people enter your life only for a season, while others remain only as long as they benefit from your generosity. Instead of chasing those who continually create confusion or disrespect your boundaries, emotionally strong people allow distance to reveal the truth. Those who genuinely value the relationship will make an effort to rebuild it with honesty and respect. Those who disappear were never truly committed in the first place. As this mindset develops, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop feeling responsible for other people's opinions. You no longer lose sleep trying to correct every false story or defend every personal decision. Instead, you focus on becoming the kind of person whose consistent actions naturally outweigh temporary criticism. Confidence grows quietly because it is no longer dependent on applause or approval. It is rooted in knowing that your principles remain steady, even when circumstances change. Eventually, you realize that the need to be understood was never a source of strength, but a hidden form of dependence. The moment you release that need, you reclaim your attention, your emotional balance, and your ability to think clearly. You become less reactive, more observant, and far more difficult to manipulate because your choices are no longer driven by the fear of being misunderstood. That inner freedom marks another step toward becoming truly resilient. And once you stop chasing acceptance from everyone around you, you are ready for the next lesson, building boundaries so strong that your peace can no longer be stolen by people who never deserved access to it in the first place. As you become less dependent on approval and more confident in your own judgment, another lesson begins to reveal itself. Strength is not measured by how loudly you defend yourself or how many battles you win. It is measured by what you choose to protect and what you refuse to tolerate. Many people believe they lose their peace because of difficult circumstances or toxic individuals, but the truth is often far simpler. They lose it because they never establish clear boundaries. They allow guilt to replace self-respect, obligation to replace freedom, and fear of disappointing others to replace honest decision-making. Every time they ignore their own limits to keep someone else comfortable, they slowly teach others that their needs will always come last. Over time, this pattern becomes exhausting, leaving them emotionally drained while everyone around them continues expecting more. The strongest people understand that boundaries are not barriers built out of anger. They are expressions of self-respect that quietly communicate what you value and what you will no longer accept. Ideas commonly associated with Machiavelli suggest that people naturally test the limits placed before them. If no limits exist, they continue pushing until resistance finally appears. This is why boundaries are essential for anyone who wishes to maintain control over their own life. A calm but firm refusal often carries more authority than endless explanations. Saying no without guilt, walking away without hostility, and protecting your time without apology are not acts of selfishness. They are acts of wisdom. Every healthy relationship depends on mutual respect, and respect cannot survive where one person constantly sacrifices themselves to satisfy the expectations of everyone else. The moment you stop rewarding disrespect with unlimited access, people begin to understand that your presence is valuable rather than guaranteed. Alongside strong boundaries comes another powerful discipline that few people truly master: the art of silence. In a world where everyone feels pressured to react immediately, silence has become increasingly rare. Many believe they must answer every criticism, respond to every accusation, and defend every misunderstanding. Yet constant reaction often weakens your position instead of strengthening it. Emotional people reveal their thoughts too quickly, allowing others to predict their next move with ease. Disciplined individuals understand that silence creates space for observation. It allows emotions to settle before decisions are made. It encourages other people to reveal far more than they intended while you remain calm enough to notice what others overlook. Silence also protects your energy. Not every disagreement deserves your participation, and not every opinion deserves your attention. Some conflicts exist only to distract you from your purpose. The wisest response is often refusing to enter the argument at all. This does not mean avoiding difficult conversations when they are necessary. It means recognizing the difference between meaningful communication and pointless emotional battles. There is tremendous strength in remaining composed while others lose control. A calm presence often speaks more loudly than endless words because it demonstrates confidence that does not depend on winning every debate. As you combine firm boundaries with thoughtful silence, your entire presence begins to change. People notice that you no longer react impulsively. They recognize that your time must be earned, your trust must be respected, and your attention cannot be demanded through manipulation. Those who once relied on emotional pressure begin losing their influence because they discover that your decisions are guided by principles rather than temporary feelings. Confidence grows naturally because you no longer need to defend every choice or explain every boundary. You simply live according to standards that protect your peace. This transformation marks a significant turning point. You stop fearing conflict because you understand that protecting your well-being sometimes requires difficult decisions. You stop measuring relationships by how long they last and begin measuring them by the respect they contain. Most importantly, you discover that true strength is not found in controlling others, but in controlling yourself. Boundaries preserve your dignity, silence preserves your clarity, and together they create a life that is no longer shaped by other people's expectations. Once these habits become part of your character, only one final lesson remains: the discipline of choosing your loyalties wisely and becoming so grounded within yourself that manipulation loses its power completely. The final transformation does not happen when the world changes. It happens when you realize that the greatest source of your strength has always been your own mind. Many people spend their lives trying to control circumstances, change other people's behavior, or convince everyone around them to act with fairness and honesty. They believe peace will arrive when difficult people disappear or when life finally becomes predictable. But the truth is far different. There will always be challenges, betrayal, disappointment, and uncertainty. No amount of planning can remove every obstacle, and no amount of kindness can guarantee loyalty from everyone you meet. The only thing completely within your control is the way you respond. The moment you understand this, you stop depending on the world to protect your peace and begin protecting it yourself. That is where true freedom begins. Ideas commonly associated with Machiavelli suggest that lasting power is never built on emotion alone. It is built on discipline, patience, and the ability to remain composed while others allow feelings to dictate their decisions. People who become mentally unbreakable do not waste energy seeking revenge against everyone who wronged them. Revenge keeps you emotionally connected to the very people you should leave behind. Instead, they focus on becoming so strong that the betrayal loses its ability to define them. Every disappointment becomes a lesson. Every failure becomes preparation. Every difficult experience becomes another reason to develop greater wisdom instead of greater bitterness. They understand that emotional control is not weakness, but one of the highest forms of strength. This perspective changes the meaning of loyalty as well. Loyalty is valuable, but only when it is earned through mutual respect and consistent character. Blind loyalty often leads people to ignore warning signs, excuse repeated disrespect, and remain committed to relationships that continually drain them. Wise individuals recognize that loyalty should never require sacrificing dignity or abandoning personal values. They appreciate those who prove themselves through actions, but they never allow attachment to cloud their judgment. When trust is repeatedly broken, they do not remain trapped by guilt or false obligation. They move forward with calm acceptance, understanding that protecting their future is more important than preserving unhealthy connections from the past. As your thinking evolves, you begin to notice another important change. You stop measuring success by how many people approve of you. Instead, you measure it by the consistency of your principles. Your confidence no longer depends on praise because it is built upon self-respect. Criticism loses much of its power because you no longer allow every opinion to determine your identity. You become slower to react, quicker to observe, and far more intentional with your decisions. People may misunderstand your silence, your boundaries, or your independence, but those misunderstandings no longer disturb your peace. You understand that not everyone is meant to agree with your path, and that is perfectly acceptable. Eventually, the qualities you once admired in others begin to exist within yourself. Calm replaces panic, patience replaces impulsiveness, discernment replaces blind trust. Instead of fearing uncertainty, you become comfortable adapting to whatever life presents. This does not make you cold or disconnected from others. It makes you resilient. Compassion still exists within you, but it is now guided by wisdom instead of emotional dependence. Kindness becomes a choice rather than a weakness. Forgiveness becomes an act of freedom rather than permission for repeated harm. Your strength no longer comes from pretending that life is fair. It comes from knowing that regardless of what happens, you possess the discipline to respond with clarity instead of chaos. This is the true meaning of becoming ruthless. It is not about becoming heartless, manipulative, or driven by fear. It is about becoming so grounded in your values that nothing outside of you can easily destroy your peace. The world may continue testing your patience, your courage, and your resolve, but it will no longer find the same person it once tried to break. It will meet someone who has learned from pain instead of surrendering to it, someone who protects their energy without apology, someone who chooses wisdom over impulse and purpose over approval. When you reach that point, you no longer fear the world's harshness because you have developed something far more powerful than perfect circumstances. You have mastered yourself, and a person who has mastered themselves carries a strength that no betrayal, no criticism, and no hardship can ever truly take away.